before I turned him in. Okay. Okay, so this is the article.
You recognize that too?
Yep. It was like, and it was so funny because I was scrolling and I thought, like, oh, wait, I know that button.
I like that, that's fun.
I know, well, and it's, I'm gonna put it down there eventually so people don't get stressed out about it.
Right? Oh god, I throw egg, that's gonna be your egg number.
I gotta make sure the volume is down because otherwise you're gonna hear ticking.
They were.
Well, it goes to egg, comes out. All right. I have 6 o'clock. Let's call this council meeting to order. I've asked Lacey if she would lead us in a pledge of allegiance tonight. Thank you, Lacey.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Can we get a roll call of officers, please?
Westwood,
Here.
Conley.
Here.
Daniel. Here. Eaton.
Here.
Keith. Present. Ronnie.
Yes.
Turpin.
Here.
All right. Mayor's comments. First off, let's just make sure everybody in the audience and up here as well has your phones on Do Not Disturb, so that they don't get rings and dings during the meeting. I had some other things that I was going to mention, and I didn't get them written down before I forgot. So if they pop up, or if you have questions that I was going to address up front, I'll address them when you have them. So going down the agenda, the first thing I have is the appointment of Red Lodge Parks Board members. So we had this on last time, but there was some additional homework that I wanted to do. I wanted to validate how many openings there were and what the proper procedure as outlined was. And I validated that. They have 2 openings, and this is one of those that is appointed by mayor with consent of council. So with that, I would, we received 2 applicants. I would like to seek your approval of appointing Mary Dale Gunn and Roger Mullendorf to the Parks Board.
Move to approve the mayor's selection of both candidates for the Red Lodge Parks Board.
I'll second.
Can I get a roll call?
Conley.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Eaton.
Yes.
Keith.
Yes.
Ronnie.
Yes.
Turpin.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right. Next on the agenda, we had 2 city-owned land permits. So last time, there was a question that the Shakespeare in the Park was listed on the old form, but the bigger problem in that is that they had not included a list of signatures. So with council's guidance and input, what I did is I've talked to them. We have approved it pending getting those signatures. And what they're going to do is it's the same folks that are also doing the fun run. So they're going to go around and do those signatures all at once. And I indicated that that would be okay. The second land use permit we had was for the Snow Creek Saloon and Street Dance. And there was some internal conversation from department heads about whether we needed to do a, I believe it's called recovery of fees in the current ordinance on land use. As I looked through that and as I reached out to try to understand what the parameters were of when that was applied, I did not feel comfortable that it was currently being applied consistently. There was one event last year that we applied it in 2 and not the others. And so for the time being, I've approved that as is, which was, I was also given that they're okay with that. But I would like for the land use and planning to maybe add that to your schedule about revisiting that to articulate a little more clearly, how and what, because it says the things, but it doesn't say this much dollars for this. You're looking at me like I'm missing something, which is highly possible.
No, I'm just, can you restate the part that you're wanting us to review?
So
'Cause I
as,
missed it, sorry.
no, so as I look at the ordinance as it's written, gives us the ability, the city, to determine that the city is entitled for a recovery of fees. But there really isn't any, it's recovery of expenses, I think is the wording. But there isn't any guidance as to, and here's how you calculate that number, and here's when it's applied, and here's it's not. As I looked at it, and I've kind of talked to some different folks, one of the things is, maybe I think we're convoluting land use and events. I think it does a lot better job of addressing events than we have in the past, but maybe those are two things, and I'll be happy to join that discussion and kind of offer some input. But what I'm looking for is the ability to say, yep, I am following the rules and the intent of council by applying X dollars. And I just want to make sure that it's something we do very consistently.
Give an example of what that might be, like extra police coverage or?
So whether it's police coverage, garbage, sewer,
Porta potty.
yeah, we didn't really address that. We just said, if it's deemed necessary, we can cover expenses, but there's not a formula, there's not a, as I looked at it, I became very grateful that we haven't been sued historically, and I want to make sure we don't get sued going forward, so I'm perfectly okay with that concept. There's some different ideas, but I said, until such time, I'm operating with the rules that are in place, so.
When we came up with that, we did say that we would have this in effect for, you know, however long, a year or whatever, and we would be happy to revisit it to see how it was working. So, you know, if we needed to tweak it at all or change anything in it, so.
So, anyway, so like I said, just to put that onto the other, but for now, I have approved it as it was presented. Any questions on either of those two? Planning board position openings. So as of the end of March, we will have 2 positions that are open for appointment on the planning board. One of those 2 positions has indicated that they are interested in continuing. One of them has indicated that they are not. So I've worked with the city clerk. We are updating the language, and we'll get that posted. And I was rushing initially, and then I realized that it's actually that person's term expires the end of March. And so what I'm looking to is we'll get that listed sometime probably early to mid-February, and that will put it so that council can approve that probably the 1st in March. That gives us some spare leeway there. But we have 2 positions, and in keeping with the posting and kind of the research that was found last time, what's the words I'm looking for their guiding documents, describe that the council shall appoint that person. So when those letters come in, I will be giving those out, and one of those appointees is the council's appointees. So that will be coming to you guys, and that will be yours to appoint. Bylaws was the word I was looking for. So that'll be coming probably in the first half of February time-wise. The next 2 things are specifically for council. There were a couple of classes on the, one of them is the Fundamentals of Montana Municipal Government. I sent that information out to everybody. It's $25. That's a course that goes over several months. What is nice, mostly what it's doing, it's like having a homework assignment. You have to get through these chapters this week, you have to get through these chapters. But the other thing that's nice is they have a chat group amongst all the people taking the course at the same time. Oh, cool. And so people pose questions that you can ask and say, what if this situation, what if that situation? And any of the council members who would be interested in doing that, you are welcome to join, and just please reach out to Lonnie, and that will be covered from a city expense standpoint. So even if you've done it before, you are welcome to attend that one. That's different from the one we were gonna do in just one afternoon last time that the snowstorm prevented from happening. And that may still happen. That's what they call the right side packet. And, anybody who is, interested in that from the public, you would also be welcome to attend and see how city government works and go through that. Just, you'll have to pony up to $25 or so. But if you're looking at like, you'd like to join us up here, I think it's great for the citizenry to be involved and understand. The only downside I'll warn you is that once you do that, you suddenly want to jump in and get your feet wet. So you've been warned.
That's a good thing.
Pardon?
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. The other one, to give you a heads up on, although I want to say this was, addressed down below, but I don't see it, so I'm going to address it here. It is down under, under admin and finance, so I won't go any further into that. But on the 29th of January, I sent out an invite out to everybody. It's at 11 a.m. in the morning. If you're not able to attend it, it will be recorded and it will be available. And it has to do with that statutory requirement we have. Our deadline to have it all done and approved is March 11th. And as hoping is becoming evident, our goal is not to wait until the last possible moment. It's to do it as soon as we don't look dumb doing it and leave ourselves a little bit of slack. Any questions on that? All right, and then the updates on the staff position. So, shortly after our last meeting, I made phone contact with our new Public Works Director. We had a delightful conversation over the phone. He is still wrapping some things up in his current environment, so I assured him that we would not bug him, and we have not. Having said that, he was down in town Friday, looking at a house and some conditional inspections and stuff. And so he and I got to drive around, and I showed him a couple of things, and I have not, as of yet, received any letters saying he's changed his mind. So I'm still anticipating him on the 5th of February. The planning director that we had made an offer to, I had left her a couple of different messages. She did reach out to me this last week. We had a good conversation. She was going to do an additional follow-up with me, which I have not heard from her yet. But at this point, I am considering whether we are going to reopen that position as just a planning director, and if we're going to change it or modify it where we post so we get more response than we did last time. But I'm also looking at the possibility of using that as a combination. The career path for planning directors tends to be planning directors, pick up some other things, and then they make it to city managers. So I'm looking at using that to hire basically the mayor's assistant, chief administrative officer. I'm reaching out. We have a list of several cities in Montana that have the same form of government that we have, but that would allow me to assign that person some additional duties other than just planning duties and use those same dollars. I've talked to Dan Clark, and he gave me a list of several different cities that are doing that, which gets us the ability to get some of that expertise from budget. I feel like I'm looking only at this. I don't want to ignore you guys. But that gives us the opportunity to have that expertise. And so I'm kind of evaluating and working on 2 position listings. And so I'm not reposting it immediately. We're changing it so we get a little bit different results.
Oh, go ahead.
Councilmember Heaton.
So are you saying that that you're thinking about the position being combined? Because
Having the duties expanded.
Okay, because I recall Courtney being extremely busy just doing her job. So that's
Okay.
just a comment that.
Noted, appreciated.
Courtney seemed to always be very, very busy. And, yeah, things, yeah, I guess I'll just stop there.
No, and I appreciate it. And as the guy who's handling her email as it gets forwarded on, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, you know that to be true.
I was just curious which other, towns have that,
So,
what side are
off the top of my head, I can tell you Deer Lodge is one of them. Interestingly enough, I want to say it was one at Missoula. Is that a county? Lewis and Clark County, Gallatin County, Missoula County.
Clark is Helena.
West, so Glendive, West Yellowstone, and Deer Lodge, Missoula has an elected mayor and appointed, so they don't have the form of government that has a city manager, yet they have somebody acting in that role. So that's a wide range. And by the way, that's kind of, so for the public's, information, every 10 years, we have to do, with statutory requirement, we have to revisit our form of government. Right now, we have what's called a mayor-council form of government, and the mayor is allowed to hire an assistant who can get paid a lot better than the mayor. This is the year we're doing that. Just to give you a high-level overview, you heard me mention earlier the deadline of March 11th is when we have to get a resolution to the county saying we would like to have that measure on the ballot. That goes to the voters to decide, yes, we want to have the conversation. Not, are we going to do it or are we not going to do it? Are we going to have the conversation? If that should come back in the affirmative, yes, we want to have that conversation and look at changing our form of government to what's called the city manager form of government. Then what happens is on the November ballot, there will be a list of candidates to be on that commission, also elected by the public. The only rules are they can't be part of city council, they can't be a city employee. So it's people who are interested in doing that. And then that group takes from 1 to 2 years to make a recommendation, and then that recommendation comes through council, goes to the ballot, and ultimately gets decided by the voters. Now, having said that, that's my understanding, having been through the first read-through and a few subsequent times of that. But again, that's a form of government. I think universally, I think the more people are involved here, the more they look at our budget and say, it would sure be nice if we had somebody that had degrees and background to help us manage our $19 million budget. I don't necessarily need to wait until we change our form of government to hire that expertise. I just have to figure out how to pay for them. And so that's one of the things I'm looking at. And to Councilmember Heaton's point, right now, in the absence of having someone with that title of planning director right now, we actually are utilizing an outside source, which also several small committees do. So in fact, a little bit later on, you'll see we have basically a hired hand to fill that role of a planning director for us. So there's a couple of different options. I just have to figure out how to pay for them. Is that a fair? Anybody want to add anything to that? So anyway, so that was a little bit about that conversation. All right. Nothing else is jumping to mind. So what we will do at this point is we will open the floor for public comments. The way this works is if you would like to just address the council, or more specifically, the chair of the council, step up, announce yourself, and then you will have 3 minutes to share whatever you want. The ask is that you keep it respectful. The ask is also if it has to do with an action item that's on the agenda, if you'll hold off until that time, then we can have that conversation in the proximity of the discussion. So this is for anything that's not on the agenda. And I have a lovely little timer for kids, very non-stressful. It counts down to 3 minutes, and then the egg bursts and little puppy dog comes out. So I don't have it down there yet, but I'll open the floor for public comments, if any. Everybody rush up at once. All right, going once?
Online.
Oh, wait, online. Are there questions, public comments online? Thank you. If you have, I see a mute there. Raise a hand or turn on your camera if you have public questions from online.
Or does unmute?
Oh, what is that, mute us, or is that?
That's the TV.
Okay, that's just the TV. We're here. All right. I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing any cameras. I'm not seeing anybody start talking. We'll call that twice. and the rules say 3 times, we'll close public comment. All right. The next item on the agenda has actually been postponed. I received a call late this afternoon, that, Tracy, who is gonna be our presenter, had a family matter she needed to deal with, so she's not gonna be here. I will say that I'm looking forward to that presentation. One of the challenges, in this position as mayor, and I think for us as well, is that there are times when people come with issues. The recent freeze and the temperatures well below, when we hit 34 below zero, as you can imagine, there's some issues that come up there. And while it is true, that some of those issues are not the city's issues to be dealt with, that is not our purview nor how we are to spend the public tax dollars. The human side of us also says that the answer can't be, sucks to be you, not our problem. And in those opportunities, it's really nice to be able to reach out to those other groups within the city. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had opportunity to reach out to the Senior Center. I've had opportunity to reach out to the Red Lodge Community Foundation, and they've been able to step in and provide assistance in those places where it would not have been appropriate or scalable or an appropriate use of time and energy for the city. And so even though they're not here tonight, I'm looking forward to that presentation, because as a city, it's not our responsibility nor even possibility to be able to solve all problems. And so I think it's important that we work with the other organizations in our area to do that. So anyway, I look forward to rescheduling with them. I don't know when that time will be. Did anybody want to add any comments to that? All right, so for action items, 20 after, how wonderful. Can you tell online, do we have, I see Cody Markser, and I do not see, but it could just be fuzzy eyes, the city attorney may or may not join us as well. So because this is new paperwork, I put the little double dagger next to it so that council, one of the rules we made amongst ourselves was that we wouldn't charge forward with anything that we didn't have proper time to review. So at this point, I will entertain a motion to take the action up.
I move to take the action up to set the time and place for hearing for request of, resort tax appeal.
Second that motion.
Is that the right one?
That's the one that was in, I wasn't where I was going, but it was the right one,
Okay,
thank
cool,
you.
sorry.
And I second that.
All right, is there, can I just get a what do they call that when you don't do a roll call vote?
Straw vote.
Is everybody okay with taking it up?
Yep.
All right, by show of hands. All right, so now I will entertain a motion to actually set the time and place for hearing a request of a tax appeal, resort tax appeal. So now we said, yes, we're gonna talk about it, now we're gonna do it officially, so we don't get to start discussing it until after we get a motion.
So, but what, so.
Oh, I moved to set a time and place for, as opposed to, let's talk about it.
Oh, okay, but don't you want to discuss
No, we
when
can't,
that time and place would
we
be?
can't
Or-
discuss it until there's a
Oh, so I don't
motion.
have to name the time and place.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Gotcha.
I moved
That's
to-
all right, we're all new at this.
Yeah.
I
thought the same thing.
I moved to set the time and place for hearing for request for, resort tax.
Second that motion.
All right, let the discussion begin. See how that works?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
I thought you wanted me to just out of the blue pick a day and time.
No. So this is, the background story here, is that we have, a request for, when there is a penalty, set for the resort tax, the appeals is this board. And also, there's a couple of other regulations there. I'll look to the city clerk to make sure I'm not skipping any of them. But basically, there are some regulations about privacy and some regulations that we will hear them and the council will make a decision as to whether we're going to waive those fees, if we like the reason, and I say we, you,
Yeah.
will waive those fees. I guess technically I'm part of the council too. So what we need to do is we need to set a time and date for that. My understanding is that will be a closed session, so that will not be open to the public. And that is to preserve, as somebody's coming and having that conversation, that's not the kind of conversation you want to have out in public. So you didn't pay your resort tax fee. So, so what we're looking for is just a time and a date that we can do that, and then that's a time that works out for everybody, and then we just make it happen.
Is that the full council?
Pardon?
Full council?
We need to at least have a quorum,
Okay.
so we should plan on the full council.
And what is the hope for the speed at which this should be occurring?
What's the
duration
of the meeting we're looking at?
4 hours.
I anticipate,
And I mean, like, how soon should it occur?
I
and
think
how
we're
long
supposed to
would-
respond within a relatively quick time frame, like 10 days of the request to let them happen. Having said that, the request has been sitting there, so we're kind of already on the backside of that. As far as the time commitment, I don't anticipate it. If it took more than 30 minutes, I would be surprised, based on ones I have sat on in the past.
How about the 30th? It'd be a Tuesday night. Like next
Of
Tuesday.
January?
Yeah, next Tuesday? Next Tuesday. Is there other board meetings that Tuesday? It's the 5th Tuesday of the month, so.
So that's the Tuesday.
I won't be there. I have to leave town that day for work.
Okay. Are you gonna be back?
I'll be back.
Okay.
I'm good
with the 30th. I'm good.
I'm good.
Do we have at least 4?
Yeah.
Are you good missing it?
What time, do you want to do it at 5:30 or?
I have hockey at 6 and I'm not missing it.
Let's do it at 5 then? Can we do it at 5
You can do it, you can do it whenever you want.
during the day?
Yeah, because it's not gonna be open to the public, so.
Right.
If you did it in the morning, I could be there.
Yeah, let's
How
call it
about morning?
I'm not leaving until like noon.
How about 9 a.m.?
I do have an appointment at 9.
Why don't we do 4:30?
Yeah,
Or-
or why don't we do Monday?
I mean, I can go.
Councilmember Heaton, what's the latest we could do it and you can still attend?
Perfect. On that Tuesday? 11.
So if we started it at 11, you could still be able to attend? Is there anybody else that does not work for?
I teach you unless I bring my class for a field trip.
Oh,
that'd be a
okay.
great field trip.
What's the earliest that you can do it then?
I can be here at 4.
So I'm hearing that we can do it not later than 11 or after 4. Is that a
Or
fair?
earlier than 4.
Or, yeah, so
So I think
between noon and 4 is out. You can choose to do it earlier, or you can choose to do it later.
Or
another day.
another day.
We could do
Yeah.
another day,
Or-
yeah, and like, what about Thursday, the 25th?
Thursday?
Oh, you're, are you
About
gone,
Monday?
That's tomorrow, isn't it?
Chris? Chris is gone.
Day after tomorrow.
Day after tomorrow.
What about
Wednesday? I can't do Thursday.
Wednesday's the planning board. How about when are you back from work?
Yeah, what do you-
Oh, no, I'm gone that whole rest of the week.
How about Monday the 29th, say at 4:30?
I have a meeting at 4.
Will you be back, Chris? On Monday?
Just checking,
On the
I am
29th?
flying back that day, so, I just don't know what time.
We could do it at 6, maybe, be enough time to get back.
And you said it was at the most 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, my crystal ball is broken, but whenever I've done these closed sessions, they've never gone more than 30 minutes.
Where are we on day?
10:42 p.m. Are we looking at the 29th or are we
But
looking
when
at?
are you coming in?
I don't get
Super
back
late.
until 11 p.m.
Okay. Well, how about,
I'm just gonna,
if we went into February 5th?
Yeah, would it be okay to get them an answer at least?
Yeah, I think if we get back with them an answer, because we're gonna wanna give them enough time to make it work as well.
Sure. We also have, February 6th is not a council meeting, it's the first Tuesday.
Are you back then or not?
mm-hmm.
Or the 5th?
That would work.
Ooh, February 6th,
5th, yeah.
What time?
after school?
It would be nice
Or-
to do it at 5:30, if we could, so I could.
It could be after work.
That works, because I don't have to close my work. 5:30?
Can I get a motion on the actual time of February 6th and 5:30?
Make a motion to schedule the appeal on February 6th at 5:30 PM.
I second.
All right, let's do a roll call on that.
That was a surprise, huh?
There we go.
February sixth, third.
Lonnie, can you see anything I missed in that, or does that look
No,
like
but
it
who
meets
made
our
the
objectives?
motion and then who seconded?
I made the motion.
I second.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, and the roll call.
Okay,
That's
Conlon,
right.
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
I'm sorry, was that 5:30?
I did it.
All right, thank you all, and I will follow up on that and let the applicant know, and then follow up with the group so you guys can formalize, or we can
So, Dave,
get another
just
proposal.
a procedural thing.
We did.
So there was a motion for the main
To
thing.
take it up, the motion was,
No, not to take it up, but then Jody made the motion to discuss it.
yes.
Okay. To move. Right.
So this was tricky because it wasn't just voting on it. We said, yes, we're gonna do it, and then we took a motion to do the 5:30. I might
I
have,
just want to make
We-
sure.
we
that-
haven't-
I did 3 times, and I probably could have done it with 2, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We like our motions.
Yeah.
Motions will be motions. We're just having a good
Okay.
time.
Alex,
And I was actually skipping right over that one and going to the next one as part of why I did that.
We just agreed on a date, so.
Yes.
So I don't think
We did it.
Except we still have to vote on it, don't we?
We already did.
Oh, I missed that, I'm sorry. I was picturing french fries, sorry. Okay.
Moving on up.
All right,
Here we go.
Bringing alcohol.
all right. Next, we are to 6B, just to make sure that I'm, thank you for keeping me in line there. So this, we actually have a resolution that we did not have in front of us before. So because of that, I chose to put the double dagger in front of that as well. So if council would choose to move forward with that?
Okay. I move, to move forward and take action on resolution number 3638, resolution of intent to exclude certain real property from the city of Red Lodge.
And I will second.
All right, since she did that, do we want to count that as our motion to start discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, shall
If it
we?
passes.
I just want to make sure council's okay taking it on.
Yes.
So, just as you guys came in, we have 2 items. We have a staff report, and I have asked, our planning director, acting planning director, to offer that staff report. But the other thing that I did is I harkened back to my days on council, and one of the questions I would have asked was, has the city attorney signed off on this? And so when we got that information back from the city attorney, that is the version that has the updates that are in front of you. So if we move forward, when we get all done with this, we'll need 2 amendments. One, to correct the code in the first whereas to 48 instead of 6. And then the second motion is, should you feel it necessary, there's a last where he's added, that is basically just stating that the terms have been met. And that's up to council whether you want to include that. It's generally nice to have some documentation in the whereases. Do you guys have any discussion you want to do first, or shall we turn the floor over
So
to?
we vote on whether or not we want to take it up?
I thought you said you did.
You just moved.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Let's do that vote. Then, now, wait, before, just so, to help make Lonnie's job easier, are we voting to take it up, or we can't, we just did that by show of hands?
Right, yeah.
All right, so yes, we're gonna take it up.
Okay.
And then we're gonna count yours as the vote, the
Yes.
motion to
So now
actually
we
do
can
it.
start discussion.
Now we can just start discussion. Do you guys wanna have any discussion prior to turning it over to our acting planning director, or?
The only question that I had was, this piece of land that they're talking about de-annexing is, on 2 sides is the land is a neighboring of the golf course itself. And are they aware that this is happening, or that that we're working on de-annexing the land around their property? And I think I asked that the last time. and I
Yeah,
don't know-
and the information I have is secondhand, but collaborated from 3 different sources that the golf course was fine with it. And the other 2 parties that are involved, the annexation itself, there's actually only 1 party involved, so it only requires 1 signature, which was what was on the application. But we have, I think, at least a couple of the parties, here tonight as well. that we can give an opportunity to speak, and you can ask questions of if you want to. In fact, one of the parties, here that has talked to the golf course, could you clarify secondhand? Would you just state your name and then answer the question?
Yes, I'm John Buick, and, I'm the party that is trading the land from the road to another location. And I talked with Jeff Smith, and he has no issue with it. The land in question is a small strip right alongside the creek, and, he didn't have any problem with it. The other party involved is Dave Langless, who is deeding me that strip of property so that I can get the road that we've used for 50 years off his lot. Does that answer your question?
And again, you guys have the map in there.
Yep.
So what happened is, to the east of the ditch, I don't have the picture right in front of me, to the east of the ditch, not shown on the map, there's currently a road that dissects that piece of property and basically renders it useless to, the one down will help, renders it not of use to the person who has it, because there's a road going through the middle of it. So to help reach a resolution on this, what they've done is they're proposing breaking that piece of land into two pieces of land, giving the west portion there that goes around the square property owned by the golf course, deeding that to Butte. Butte doesn't have any other city land. Butte does have the county land that is to the north of that. If those two pieces of land are able to be attached, he can actually build right there and on that, so that has more value to him. And presumably the piece that's on the right, once that road is vacated, is more valuable and ultimately has the potential to bring in more tax revenue to the city than just being empty dirt.
Yeah.
So my thinking is it's probably half a dozen of one and six of the other as far as revenue to the city goes.
I think one of the other questions I had is whether or not you're going to, the Buick is going to fence off, the land that is part of Red Lodge Grizzly Peak. Are you going to put a fence in there, or is it just gonna be open land?
Well, we'll put a fence on the north side because our property would move there, and there's a horse pasture there.
Right.
And then probably run along the road back.
On both sides of the road, like
No,
along the ditch?
no.
So it'd be
Just on the west side of the road.
And one of the concerns I would have that I think we want to be careful of too is that this is a legislative action that we are doing in the process. And so our hat varies a little bit differently than from a planning board perspective, where we have conditional uses and guidelines and kind of step in and play the role of an HOA. I think it's more, and just a review of the process, it's actually in the staff report, and I had kind of reviewed we do a resolution of intent. Then there has to be a public notice that runs, I want to say 20 days, there's a specific period. So I have heard second or third hand some conversation of, were they looking at annexing the other direction as opposed to de-annexing? I haven't heard that firsthand, but I think that's why you have a public comment period. If there's anything like that, that's where that'll come up. And then it comes back to the council to approve it. And then there's a couple of additional steps that we've learned since the last meeting, where we have to provide the county an updated map of the city. And then I'll let Cody speak to, she found that there's also an action that the planning board has to update the zoning maps, because there's a chunk of land that used to be in the zoning maps that isn't in the zoning maps anymore. But there's an order that kind of has to go through. And by the way, some of it has to be the survey and the actual splitting of the land, because you can't give somebody half a piece of land.
No.
And so there's an order of events that happens to go there. My desire, or I guess my intent is probably, is given that this was something that started back in November and then it got delayed improperly, I'd like to, I have zero issue with holding off and making sure we do it right, but if we're comfortable moving forward, I just assume get moving forward with it to get it done.
We hear from Cody.
Yeah, Cody, are you able to come off mute and?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Good. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so we see de-annexations, they kind of follow the same process as annexation, but they can kick off one of two ways. They can kick off going through resurveying, working through that process, and then through the public hearing process, or they can kick off with this resolution of intent at the council level. Ultimately, at the end of the day, council will make the decision on how this moves forward. And I'll step back, Sandy, to, I believe it was Sandy, your question about, has the public been noticed? There's been no formal public notification at this point because this one is approaching from the step of resolution of intent beginning with council first, and then it would move through the process. So you'll see in that staff report, it's just a draft. Obviously, this is just a resolution of intent, so not all of the pieces are in place yet, but based off that, I just wanted to point out some points of discussion, considerations, similar to what you would do in an annexation, just really evaluating what the pros and cons are of releasing that property for the city. And thinking through how that will play out when you've got a different parcel of land in that spot. So then on the zoning map amendment, that's a different route because you would be changing the zoning boundaries of that specific area. That would be a map amendment. So that does have to go through its own statutory process as well. It can run simultaneously with the rest of this. The de-annexation or exclusion is what we call it in statute, but that is its own separate piece, just because you're changing the boundaries.
Cody, do you have any idea of what kind of expense or amount of time that would require from the city?
Yeah, as far as reviewing, is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, reviewing and making those amendments as needed.
Yeah, it can vary. I mean, it kind of depends who's at the table doing the work. I know the city doesn't have a GIS, graphic informational systems person on deck. So if you needed to contract that out, you're probably looking at a handful of hours. So maybe roughly $400 or $500 to amend the zoning map. The review of the de-annexation itself, I want to say typically from start to finish with reviews, public notifications, hearings, you're likely looking at around roughly $1,000 on the contractor end just to get the documents in place and shuttle it through.
Is that last part an expense that would normally be borne by the city, or is that borne by the parties doing the action?
It totally depends on each municipality. Generally, municipalities identify that in their annexation policy. Yours does not specify that. So I'd suggest you consult with your city attorney on how you'd want to handle that. I think you can offset that cost with the applicant, but I'm not sure the legality of that since it's not addressed in your current policy.
Councilmember Eaton, do you have any questions you want to add? Councilmember Keys?
So if we did decide to, ask the applicant to pay that, that would be Langlands?
That would be Langlis, who currently owns the land.
I guess just that's something that I would want to encourage so that the city doesn't incur
Yeah.
more fees
We don't want
for,
to set a precedent for that.
yeah.
Cody, if we were going to do that as part of the resolution, would that be part of the resolution of intent, or would that be a negotiation and something we would do in the final approval? What would your recommendation be? I know you're not an attorney.
Yeah, I don't typically see that language in your resolutions at all, because it would be part of the actual administrative process. detailed there. So since it's not, I don't know that it's necessarily something you want to include in the resolutions, but you definitely want to have the conversations with Dennison first.
Councilmember Keys, did that address your question? Anything else?
Well, my question would just, who would bear the cost? So that's been answered, yes.
I think we could probably wait, you know, research that and, I mean, even exclusion and zoning map amendment, public hearing, when we have that, you know, I mean, it looks like it could be added in several other places besides the first resolution.
Within that process, yep.
Yeah. Vanessa, process.
Councilmember Conley, what's your thoughts?
Well, obviously, the fees are gonna need to be borne by the applicant or the two people that are gonna benefit the most from this, not the city. And of course, Dennison will pass that on to us. Other than that, I really don't have any problems with this intent to de-annex.
Okay. Councilmember Tupin, did you have any concerns with the resolution of intent?
I don't have any concerns with the resolution of intent, and I feel like most other things could be addressed within the process and during protest period. One thing I would just want to be sure of is that the members of the HOA have also been notified, or at least the board members. I don't see it being an issue, but at the same time, I think it's only right.
That will
And-
probably come through the planning board.
Yes.
For the public hearing part of it?
Yeah, the public hearing piece, that's what I would imagine. So,
Public
again, I
hearing.
imagine that would get addressed, but
Yeah.
that's the only thing I want to vocalize besides cost.
Okay, and then, Councilmember Daniels, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, I think everybody pretty much covered costs and notifications and.
So my sense, if I'm hearing correctly, is there are still some things we need to work out, but people are comfortable moving forward with the first step. Is that an accurate sense of things? Do we want to have any motions to amend what was in the packet as opposed to the one that is after the fact when our attorney, so the blue is not what's in the packet that was shared with the public. So I feel we probably ought to make this the official copy somehow.
So this blue whereas is what Dennison is suggesting we add?
Yes, and also in the first whereas, the correction.
The first and the fifth whereas.
So there's a motion to approve the resolution number, which had a number
3638?
3638. That motion is on the floor, but that involves approving it as is. Do I have a motion to amend
I
that?
move to amend, resolution 3638 with the two amendments, the first, whereas and the fifth whereas, as noted in blue.
I'll second.
Lonnie, does that notification work for your record keeping, where we have a hard copy?
Yeah.
All right, discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, let's vote on the amendment. Roll call vote, please.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Dayton?
Yes.
Keith? Yes. Ronnie?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
The amendment passes. Now we'll move back to the original amendment, resolution 3638 as amended now. Any further discussion? Let's do a roll call vote on that too, please.
Mayor, does it go to the public? It is an action item.
I will take that, thank you. So before we do it, there's a public comment period, but yes, I will open it in case it is an action item. If there's anybody from the public who would like to speak, let me open that, because I promised
You did.
that I would do that.
You promised.
Thank you for calling me on that.
Jen Cap, 8 North Platte. I have no objections. It's important to me that we maintain the audience participation when appropriate in the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate that.
We appreciate your appreciation.
And anybody else can call me. I don't know, say, remember to go to the audience on that too. Because, yeah, all right.
Do I ask online?
Yeah, anybody online who wanted to add anything? We make a great team, don't we? All right, hearing no discussion, let me close the public discussion on that, and let's go back to the roll call vote on the resolution 3638 as amended.
Conley?
Yes.
Daniel? Yes. Keaton?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Ronnie? Yes. Stephen?
Yes.
All right, thank you to our online folks who are being paid to be here. Thank you, you're welcome to leave.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome to stay as a participant if you'd like. Just the billing hours quit.
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda, we have correspondence. First of all, is there anybody who has correspondence they'd like to share? And I think there was a couple of discussions that were gonna come from this. Let's start with, Councilmember Daniels. Councilmember Conley?
I don't remember. I sent the correspondence, I did get a I had two different, correspondence. And one was actually for the mayor and for the city to handle. And we decided that didn't need to come here. And I don't know what the other one was, do you remember?
That was the one I remember. So part of the question that came up was, and it came in after the deadline for correspondence, so it wasn't there, but there was a question about whether we needed to include it or not. And I just want to calibrate and make sure we're all on the same page as far as correspondence, and the discussion that I had there, and also the council president was involved in that, was sometimes things come in that really aren't council's purview. They are, mayor, here's an administrative problem, go fix it, much like the toilet last time. And did that need to be raised here, or did you just pass it off? Is everybody comfortable with handling it that fashion?
Yeah.
And then there were other things that involve the council or need to be on council discussion, and those absolutely should be included inside.
And I believe that the other one was council, and that was the letter from, Pete Critelli regarding the airport. And I think I sent that to you on Saturday.
I got that. So it'll be in the.
So it'll be included in the next packet.
It'll be included in the next.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So, I mean, we can discuss correspondence more now, or do you want to wait till council rules and procedures to really go into that discussion?
I think that makes sense. Is there any more actual correspondence to do at this point? All right, so then let's move into the other council business. So this is for the public, this is the discussion time of the council, talking about the stuff that will be on the next meeting, or maybe the meeting after that, so that when we get to the action items, we don't get surprises, because you can see, it can take a little bit if we have to hash it out in the moment. So first up, we have the public health and safety, which for those who are interested, meets on the morning of council meetings at 8:00 a.m. And so who did you guys elect as a chair?
Sandy, that was me.
All right, Sandy, the floor is yours.
And it was a really great meeting. We had 5 items on our agenda, but we only got to 4 because we only had an hour. We were brainstorming, the funding mechanism for long-term solutions to the police salary gap. There appears to be a gap between the police department salary and the county sheriff department, salary, and we talked about different ways. Resort tax can only be used for any capital expense for the police department, but our main goal here is to retain our policemen. They come in, they get trained, they get comfortable, and then they get an offer that's a lot more than what we can afford to pay them. And one of the things we were going to check is whether or not, well, we know that resort tax cannot be used for the overtime for the police department. And our general fund has to bear the entire amount of the police salaries, including overtime. Yet, it's obvious that our police presence is into overtime during the tourist season. And that's the whole concept of the resort tax. I was kind of surprised that public works salaries, some portion of theirs, could come out of resort tax, but not the police. And, but I think that we have to actually, get a vote of the people to change that. And even if it were only the, overtime, which we just estimated at maybe 10%, but that would also give some relief to the general fund, and maybe we could afford to pay the police more than what we currently are. Retention is our biggest issue, with the police department. I was kind of also surprised that the new guys signed a 3-year contract. So that's really good. And right now, their biggest problem is housing. Big surprise for all of us. They do have 7 policemen on staff, the same number of policemen they had in 1994. Yeah. Let's see.
Can I add a comment to the 3-year contract?
Mm-hmm.
So what's happening, it was mentioned that a lot of times we're hiring new officers. And so part of that is we pay them to go to post. So not only are we covering the cost of schooling, but we're paying them to go to schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And so the city's now in a position that we get a contract back that says, you will be with us for 3 years. If not, you'll write us back a check for the expenses that we paid for your post-certification training. So that's.
3 months, this is an intensive training.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of money.
That's good. Anyway, so we were kind of brainstorming that. We talked about, animal ordinances. The feral cat colonies, we think, have decreased because BHA has been catching them and neutering as needed, and, now they're barn cats, or they've been working. So I noticed in my neighborhood in particular that we have less feral cats, but we do have a neighbor across the alley who's been feeding them, and now we have a raccoon problem as well. That actually attacked a neighbor's dog in her yard and then attacked her.
Oh, geez.
So we do have some problems. I mean, we live in the wild, we know that. We've had a turkey that attacked, we have an attacked turkey out there. That attacked more than,
He attacked my sister-in-law, and then he attacked a police officer who went to investigate it. So,
I was suggesting that perhaps a paint gun, so that you see that.
You know which turkey.
We know which turkey it is, you know.
And
Yeah,
I would like to
so,
remind everyone that there is an archery season for turkeys in
Turkeys
city
only.
limits.
Within city limits?
Yeah, within city limits. Yeah.
Can I get the dates on that so I know when to stay indoors?
Yes, and individuals can, get their own traps for those raccoons or cats,
They do
whatever.
have live cats.
They have live traps. We have also had more than one instance of puppy mills here in town. You might notice that there's a house missing across from the community church that I was told, who knows, for sure, was a puppy mill, and the house was not salvageable, so there's an empty lot there now. So,
In the future, let's try to go with confirmed stuff.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can call me on that too if I get it
That's
wrong.
why I wanted to say, it's typical Red Lodge. Anyway, we do have rules and regulations, and all you can do is report it. We talked about, we do have an ordinance for the downtown that the, adjacent business has to keep the sidewalk clear. And this actually falls under Mayor Dave's purview. And the problem is that all the sidewalks are nice, and when you get to the corner with the, handicap ramp and across the side street, then you slide or you, step with little tiny steps. And we thought that the ice melt probably would be too expensive to do, but maybe, sanding those cross areas, of the side streets so that our tourists don't land flat on their face. Most of the locals know, but, we did talk about maybe a little extra sand there, trying to, save people from falling. And then we had a discussion on crisis management plan. Did the city have a crisis management plan? We just went through, minus 30 degrees. We've had people that had frozen pipes, frozen toilets. We were lucky that nobody lost their power. If we lost our power, and we couldn't heat our homes, and we have an aging population, does the city have a plan? And we decided to double check with the fire department. because we kind of hope that they do.
Is there a place big enough that has generators, backup generators, where we could technically, you know, house people for a couple of days should the cold snap last and there's no power?
And then we had a discussion, because somebody asked me about it, that our water comes off of Waterworks Road, south of town, and you can drive right up to it. Luckily, some of the other, council members have storage facilities, so it seems to be locked up tight.
Yes.
And, even if you cut power to it, there are generators within the facility.
Yep.
To take over. We also, discussed with Mayor Schrock that you can get, 4 cameras and a DVR for like $500 at Costco and actually see what's going on down there. And if anything untoward was going on, they'd be able to shoot on down there pretty quick. Because this is the entire town's water source. So,
So just to mention too, we have telemetry, and the guys have that all on their phones, so if something is to happen, power to go out, a pump not to start, it sends out alarms to them.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so.
Oh, that's great.
So that was kind of all of the crisis things with the power and the water, and, that was it.
So part of the purpose of this, when we set this up, is for the other council members who aren't on that committee to jump in with their inputs or thoughts.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you, did you use that hand?
No, this is my comfort zone.
Looking for hands, anybody wants to add or ask?
I think, Dan, thanks for being so detailed, that was.
Yes, that was really,
I have no question. No.
This is like a school report when the first group gets up and all the other groups go, uh-oh, right?
That's what I felt like too.
All right, administration and finance, which for the public's, information meets at 9 o'clock in the morning on those days. And who did you elect as your chair?
Jody.
All right, outside
Okay.
voices.
All right, so, really? Okay. Well, first off, as the mayor alluded to earlier, it is time for our local government voter review resolution. We have started working on that. There's, sample resolutions out there, so we will be following that sample. What we need to do in that resolution is, pick how many commissioners we, in that resolution, when they vote on it, we have to say how many commissioners will be on that panel, what the budget will be, and, what's the other thing? I think those are the two main things that we have to come up with. I did a little bit of research on the budget. Chris is gonna start putting the budget together. There's a sample budget out there on Montana, State University Extension Local Government Center of what that budget looks like. Technically, if your population is around 1,000 people, they want you to at least budget 17,000. If you're approximately 10,000, they want 31,000. Now, you can budget a dollar amount. Our city government is responsible for that budget. However, if you budget mills, they are assessed in addition to our general mills, which is why we've done mills in the past, rather than just say we want to put $20,000 towards it.
So that was
why.
We didn't know that at the
Yeah.
time of our meeting, so that makes me think differently than I just.
Yeah, I know. So, Lonnie, had discussed that, probably 20 to 25,000 would be in the ballpark with our population. We had also discussed, having 5 people on the commission. They recommend, they say 3 is usually not enough, the work becomes really cumbersome. 5 is kind of a nice number, 7 to 9, it kind of is unwieldy.
Yeah.
That was
It
the
has
word
to be
that
an
I-
But it needs to be an odd
Yeah.
number.
Yeah.
But it needs to be an odd number. So we were shooting for 5, you know, it's obviously open for discussion. We would like to have the resolution, presented at the next council meeting because it is due, as Dave said, by March 11th, in order to get it on the ballot in June. I would like to, have it on the agenda, you know, with a little asterisk for action. I will my job is to get with Dennison on the resolution, we'll put that in there. Chris is working on the budget, she can get with Lonnie on the value of a mill, so we can decide how many mills that is.
Just to confirm, that is a resolution, right?
Yes,
Would you be all right if at the first meeting in February, we're discussing it and then it's for action at the second meeting, or do you want to move forward at the 1st of February?
my only concern is I want the county to have enough time to look at it and say, yep, it's good.
Okay, so that's to come back.
And I would propose that we give it to them even before we have the meeting. So we can give it to them before we vote on it. That's one of those things, if you got it
Okay.
together.
If we can do that, then I'm
yeah.
fine with that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So if we can do that, I just
So
realized
we've
that
got
was
that, so we'll have it on the 1st of February for discussion,
Yes,
and then give them the chance to kick it back and make any changes, and then the second one, we'll approve it.
Yeah.
And then we have one spare, just in
Yeah.
case.
okay, perfect. And, I will send out this email to everyone that Lonnie sent. It's got links in there for the budget, it's got, explanations for everything. I would also, request that everyone please take that class, and if you can't take that class on the 29th, please watch the recording of it, because I think every single one of us needs to understand this process, because it's really quite a process. There's a timeline out there as well, of what steps we need to do, because the voters first have to vote on it and say in June that they want this commission, and then, people have to apply to run for the commission, and they're voted on in November. The public votes on the members of the commission. So, hopefully we'll have at least 5 applicants.
What happens if we don't?
We beg people to please go and run. I think we'll have enough. We had a couple questions. We want to ask Dan Clark, do you have to live in the city limits to be on it?
Yeah, we want to ask a few criteria questions, because it's not really clearly stated,
Right.
so.
So that's that on that.
Can I make a quick point?
Of course,
Where,
yes.
the comment was made that then we'd have a meeting, another meeting before, but that's not true.
No,
Our meeting in March would be
the
12th.
Okay, so we have to do it at the second meeting. So if, like I said, if you want to have it with a double dagger at the 1st of February, if you've already had a chance to get it to the county, or if you're gonna decide what it looks like at that first meeting, then we'll just make sure we get it to the county so we can take action on it.
I can send out to everyone a copy of the sample resolution. Chances are, that's exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And, just with our budget filled in and the number of, we won't have the budget until, Chris gets with Lonnie, but, on how many mills that will be.
And just to comment on that, as information is shared is okay. Discussion is not allowed outside of the public view, so if there's a share of information, try to remember to BCC all the council members as opposed to include them. And if you reply, please don't go out of your way to reply to everybody, because then it's a discussion. We can fix it, we put it part of the record, it's just better to not go there if we can avoid it.
Yeah.
we could have a special meeting if needed.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we could have a special meeting, thank you.
We already did one.
So, yeah.
Yes,
There's gonna be a few ones.
So I would like to have it on there with a dagger, and if people are not comfortable voting on it, then, we can put it off. But we would have that option. That would just be my preference.
And technically, let's reach out here, because we have talked about it at this meeting, is your sense it would need the dagger? Because even if we don't have the double dagger, the reality is you guys can move to table something. My fear is just not that everybody knows that in the future, and we're trying to make sure that council doesn't feel buffaloed.
I like the idea of having the dagger on there, just because these folks haven't necessarily seen that resolution. And that to me is what that is really indicating, is this is something that is new to your eyes, even if it's not new conversation.
To everybody's eyes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's also a good indicator for the public.
exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, we shall
Okay.
keep it.
And, all right, so next, does anybody else have any questions or input they would like to discuss on that? Local
Again,
government voter.
My question about the actual, committee once it's established, and so I'm being very, optimistic that it,
Yeah.
goes through and people are elected to the committee, and what's the, because I'm already thinking about who's gonna serve on this committee, so wanting to understand the commitment from somebody, so we can talk them into it. So, how long is this,
Commission.
yeah, how long is it?
Up to 2 years.
Up to?
Yes. They are asked to go through a training process. The city will pay for that training of them. So there will be that probably in December of 2024. They'll be elected in November, and then they would go to the training in December.
Okay,
So that they can be up to speed on everything. So by the time the whole thing is through, within 10 days after taking office, the study commission meets to organize, dates set by presiding officer, swear and elect, discuss when, where, how to meet, develop budget, decide whether to cooperate with another jurisdiction, consider consolidation and collaboration of services. In December of 2024, MSU Local Government Center hosts a study commissioner training. December 2024 to November 2026, MSU Local Government Center, Montana League of Cities supports Study Commission with technical assistance training and community engagement. Study Commission reviews power, form, and plan of government, either chooses no change or makes recommendations to voters by November elections, and that would happen in 2026, be when the voters would actually vote on that change.
well, it's a long
Within 60
time.
days of adoption of the local government review report, they have to submit reports to appropriate agencies and publish their findings.
So now
So
you
we
know
can go
what,
through all of this and there not be a change.
right, so there's two spots where the public can either say, we're not even gonna look into it, or we're gonna look into it, but we vote no. And that's okay. And now you get a sense for why I'm looking at using that open position to get that expertise. And the only difference really is with the change of form of government, that person is ultimately hired and fired, that person reports to the council, much like I do now. I report to the council collectively, versus if I hire a mayor's assistant, they report to me. The job duties can actually be the same. So we still have the same challenge. How are we gonna pay for it? But there are several cities that have gone this approach rather than the change of government. My feel is, to the extent possible, I'd like to not wait 3 years before we get that expertise in here. And so, like I said, now we're back to why I'm looking at expanding that job description a little bit.
I will send out all of these to everyone on council so that you have it. Like I said, I think a lot of this will be reviewed in that 1 hour webinar that Dan is giving as well, but it's always nice to have it in hand, especially that timeline, because it's very important that we stick to that timeline. It's Montana code that says we have to do that. So.
If I may, there was another question over here.
Yeah, does anybody recall 10 years ago what happened if that,
No, it was voted down.
it was voted down the June vote?
Mhm.
Okay.
So nothing.
So it was not
extended.
pursued.
I don't know that it's ever gone past that vote before.
Okay.
And this is actually, what we have right now is the most common, is very, very common in Montana. And so, like I said, and it has worked, you know, there may be some people who go, but it has worked, so yeah. So, but that's one of the things the voters get to decide. We just have to do our best to equip and persuade.
And we have to be
Educate.
informed, we have to be educated ourselves so we can educate the public, is basically what I boil.
I think that's a big thing, when someone goes to see that on the vote and they see a mill, that's the education piece right there. 'Cause there's a lot of folks that don't know what that is, and they just assume, that's my tax money, like, that's money coming out of my pocket. Really being able to educate why, I think is really important, so.
Any other questions for anybody on that topic before moving on?
All right, so then next, council rules and procedures. I'm not sure if that, we did kind of, go into a couple of things on there, this morning that we had recommendations that we would like added in there. And obviously this is open up for discussion, and if we do decide to amend this, everyone will get to vote on these changes. And also, please feel free, if there's something else you would like changed in the council rules and procedures, you know, this is our discussion time to decide that. number one, we would like to add, the standing committees with council picking the, and the chairperson, you know, the chairperson would basically pick with, you know, input from council members who is on those standing committees. We did like how that worked this year. And we would like to, retain that power. So we would like to put that in our city council rules and procedures. We did also talk about, the work session a little bit, and, we came up with that we did like the way that it's written now, so that if we do have a bigger topic for discussion that's gonna take an hour that we want full council to work through, then we do have the option right now of saying, you know, Mayor Westwood, we would like to have a work session before the general meeting, the general business meeting.
Okay.
So that was kind of where we went with that.
That's the ordinance itself, you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
You know, so whether or not we have to put that in our council rules and procedures, I don't know. But it is written that way. I mean, as Sandy found out, an hour goes by pretty quick when you're having a committee meeting, and so, I do like that, we were able to, now have these committee reports and have discussions during our work, during our business meeting. So hopefully the need for a full-blown work session will be few and far between, but it absolutely could happen. Where we're just like, there's no way we're gonna get through this in the 10-minute allotted to us or whatever it is. So that was number one. And then minutes, required for the standing committees. We technically are not required by this administration to take minutes at the standing committee. However, everyone in admin felt that they are a benefit to the public who doesn't get to attend to have those. They don't have to be verbatim. They can just be a summary of what was said. Lonnie has offered to, whoever has offered to act as secretary, to get with her, and she can give you some great pointers and tips on how to give correct reports, correct minutes, so that they're no, so they're not editorialized, so they're not just personal opinion. Basically, it's a summary of what happened, no emotion, this is what we talked about, type of thing. And who's been assigned what job, you know, what action item. Who's there, yeah. So please, if you have never, Lonnie has offered to give us kind of a format for minutes as well, so they're following that same format across the board. Please feel free now to discuss any of that on the standing committees, because that's what we primarily talked about. So if anybody has any input on that.
I thought Lonnie was offering to come and take minutes.
I was like, what? Yeah. No, she has offered to. Or I thought you were like. Denied, I know. So.
I heard in an earlier conversation here that the group kind of likes using that format of the double dagger, for stuff that's new. Do you want to include that in the rules and procedures to protect that going forward as well?
Yeah, sure. I do like that. Okay.
And then the other thing that I would add, was an amendment from years ago. There's a thing in there that says that the role of city attorney, shall look at resolutions and stuff as to form and content, and we had changed the wording to advise from approve, because.
It's still there.
Okay, so that's still in there already?
Yeah, we did
Okay.
change that. Yeah, that's still there.
I didn't know which version you were starting with, so.
The February 9th, 2021 is the one that I have. So, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Did we wanna, we didn't talk about this morning, but in the rules and, procedures, do we wanna talk about voting, when you're not present, section 4, in the meeting of section 4?
Is this in the, just for clarification, is
The
this in
quorum?
the standing committees? Like, can you attend those standing committees remotely, or are you talking about
I'm talking
council
about
remotely?
city council.
Yeah.
Part 3,
voting.
section 4.
Where it says,
Because with the way I read it, it is allowed, but I know some of you disagree with that, so,
A quorum of the city council shall consist of 4 council members physically present at the meeting of the council. The affirmative vote of 4 council members at a lawful meeting of the council shall be necessary to adopt a resolution or ordinance or pass any measure unless a greater number is required by law. The mayor shall decide all tie votes of the council, but shall have no other vote.
So to me, the affirmative vote of 4 council members means just what it says, wherever they are. But if it was the affirmative vote of 4 physically present council members, that's starkly different. And so my
I'm happy-
interpretation is that, you know, if we attend online, and not that any of us want to do that, but sometimes we have to leave for jobs and things and be out of town, so.
I think a big reason that language is written this way is I don't think it had the idea of that kind of technology in place. So, to me, that when it says for physically present at the meeting, like no write-in votes or anything like that. Personally, I do think that it could use a rewrite. But I am gonna be one of those that stand on the side that I'd like to see people present.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all want to be present.
Yeah.
but Some of us can't be sometimes.
I understand, and I
And
understand
I-
that, but I think for that particular vote, I think for a vote, I think you should be here. That's my personal opinion on it.
And it's also in our charter, isn't it, similar language
is.
in our
Yeah.
charter?
Yeah, and,
So,
So it sounds like something we'd have to address there.
and my recollection, and I'm happy to revisit it with Dan Clark again, but when this question was asked from Dan Clark's guidance was, the council cannot, so there's a hierarchy of how things go. The council cannot pass ordinances that overwrite the charter, only the voters can change the charter. His recommendation at that time was to strike the language from the charter, and then the rules of procedure could dictate it. But his feeling was that as our charter was written, and I think some of it is, that's the definition of a quorum, is who's voting and what's there. But he felt that, and we weren't unique in it, there were other communities that had that. But the charter, so we can certainly pose that to the voters to change, and then in the future, we could set that with rules of procedure, and that was actually his recommendation, to do that. But I don't believe, and we can check again and find out, but I don't believe we can do that, without changing the charter first, and so I think we'd be on really shaky ground.
Do you know, does anybody have the charter up?
I happen to have a
didn't think it was
copy.
in the charter. I thought it was all.
it's in both. It's in both. And I fully support putting it to the voters to
Yep.
decide if that's the case. You know, to allow remote voting, and just with the caveat that we would decide when and where, and how that works, you know, in our rules and procedures.
Yep.
I mean, and then the voters would say, yeah, it's okay to change the charter. I realize it's 2024. Sometimes
Right.
you vote that way.
Right, and I guess I have a slightly different interpretation than Chris. I mean, my interpretation when I read this is the quorum of the council exists only when there's 4 people physically present.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't say anything about, if there's 4 people here and there's a quorum, it doesn't say anything about not allowing people that aren't here to vote.
Yeah.
That's
So-
what I'm saying the same thing.
Right, but I think that it's more of like, I'm not saying that there should be, that 3 of us could be away and not have, right?
Right.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying like, so I'll just say, because I've done this several times, when I travel, I have to travel for work. I can't say, no, I can't go, I can't travel for work.
Right.
So when I go, and then I attend online, and then I just get ignored the entire time. And I'm not asked for input, I'm not asked for a vote, nothing. So it doesn't, for me, I am committed to the council, and I make it work in my schedule to attend online, and I think that should be at least acknowledged. And, I don't see any problem if there's 4 people here, and especially if it's not a vote that is, that needs to be broken by, the tie needs to be broken by the mayor, a vote. I don't see what the big issue is of of recognizing a vote. That's just my personal opinion. I think, it's 2024, and people from all over the world cast votes remotely all the time.
I just had an email from Al, president of the planning board, to the planning board, because he's in South Carolina, so he's attending remotely. And he brought up the fact that he couldn't hear everybody's comments. He couldn't necessarily hear the, everything going on in the room. And he also tended to overspeak because of that, or be ignored because he's online, even though he's kind of like jumping up and down. So, and the planning board does allow remote voting, but he felt very uncomfortable doing so. And I too have been online and found out that I was having trouble following what was going on because the microphones, or some people use their inside voice, and you really couldn't hear what they were saying, and same with the public. So I'm against remote voting just because I've had bad experience, and even recently, we had the email from Al, who's trying to do it as well.
If I may, I'm observing two conversations here, and I'm trying to keep it to one. One of the conversations is if it were within the purview of this board to have the vote.
Yep.
Those that are in favor and those that are against, and without even trying to tally that up,
It's not our vote.
the question is, do we have that prerogative? So what I'd like to do is reach out to Dan Clark and see if my recollection of his comments is, and when we have an opportunity to meet with him, maybe have him write up, because my recollection was, once you change the charter, section 2.007, which somebody read earlier, a quorum of the council shall consist of 4 council members physically present. No resolution or ordinance may be adopted, and I don't remember if it was the definition of a quorum is those that are there to vote. I'm all in favor of having a discussion here, provided it's our purview to do so. And so I will take that as an action item. I'll work with Dan, I'll work with Dennison and see if I can get a review.
Review, or,
Pardon?
a written-
Written
Yeah.
guidance and interpretation of what that is.
That'd be great.
But
And
my
then we can decide
understanding
the
has
next
been, when it has come up in the past, that we have to give that to the, which is the job of this body, can put an ordinance, can put a ballot on, an issue on the ballot for the voters to vote on. And basically, with that wording, use that to make it so that it can be dictated by rules of procedure. And then we're to the conversation that is kind of happening right now, which is, I like it, I don't like it.
Yeah.
And that's great, but we've got to get it into that arena before that conversation is really, we have to make sure it's a conversation worth having before we use the energy to have it.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that? If I,
Okay. So any other, comments or wishes on the amended city council rules and procedures? This time?
I did make a mention this morning, and again, this is just something I wanted to bring up one more time in terms of the minutes. I think it would be nice for the public to have some sort of recording that they can reflect to, not necessarily digital or Zoom, but, or not necessarily a Zoom video, but some sort of recorded minutes that they could be listening to, just considering we are doing so much of the work session. And I understand we're covering a lot of that here, but again, things can get lost in conversation, and I think it would just be nice to have that for reflections, but I also am okay if it doesn't happen. I do think we are doing a
Of
much.
the standing committee?
Yes, exactly,
Okay.
yep, of the standing
Hold on.
committees.
Lonnie,
Yes.
is that something you see as being particularly difficult, or we could show them how to turn that on and we could provide that? So if the council decides, yeah, we would just use the Zoom link and record it. So if the council decides in rules and procedures, in your purview, that you guys want to have recordings available, absolutely, we can, from an administrative side, we can make that happen.
And again, like, I know we're doing a much better job of discussing what's happening in those meetings and try and make ourselves as available as possible, but again, we work, we're out and about, and just having that availability, because even if I could be listening in while I'm working on a Zoom call, that'd be great, or just be able to go back and reflect on what was that conversation we had. It's just nice to have those references. And it's not the end of the world by any means. I hope that we're really good with taking our minutes and expressing all of our opportunities, but I also want to just make sure that the resources can be available if possible.
Well, it will make it nice too for
copying down minutes, like, ooh,
Yeah.
did I miss what was said? Did I misinterpret that? Who said that? I didn't write that down.
So anyone else think,
I mean, I think that having a Zoom option for people to attend, that actually came up in the workforce housing committee meeting that I was at on, Monday and, yesterday. Gosh, that seems so far away. And somebody was saying that it would be nice to have a Zoom option for committee meetings.
For standing committees?
and, is everyone okay with those being recorded?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I will put it into our amended city council rules and procedure for us to vote on them.
Can I sneak a question in just on that topic? So our Zoom meeting, which is up right now, and we generally get it posted somewhat quickly, but there is an option from the administrator, if there are people that are participating, that they can ask to record it. Do you guys have any, I'm kind of leaning to, it's a public record, it's gonna be available in 2 days, I don't have any objection to for granting that. Are you guys okay carrying forward with that policy?
Absolutely.
All right, so, and then same thing with the standing committees, if somebody wants to record it, then it's an administrative pop-up, so-and-so is asking to record it, we'll let them do it.
Okay.
All right, we'll continue
Okay.
with that, thank you.
All right, so, sorry, we did a lot today, and we need a lot of input from council on this stuff, so,
So just a straw poll, that is the thinking that all of those ideas that were recommended, everybody's in favor of?
yep,
Okay.
okay. Well, let me know, if there'll be any other, if you think of something that you'd like to, change or be brought up. I have a feeling that this probably won't be complete for a couple of meetings for sure, because we'll want to have a good look at it as a discussion item too. So, and then, other future agenda items, Lonnie sent us a list. So let me pull it up in my email here.
That's Tetris.
No, just have to find my email on my phone, I'm sorry. I'm like, here we go, here it is. So, she had 6 items on her item of things that we will be reviewing. Business license, registration fee resolution, need to update and include alcohol with one of the other fees, as we cannot charge that one separate. We found that out. So, we also need to take a look at the ordinance and update where needed. So we will be reviewing that again for business license fee. Recycling annual review is coming up. She's gonna send us the budget, for the recycling center and where that is at so far. There's been a lot of expenses coming in, so we may be, relying on our Public Works Committee and our Sustainability Board to maybe try to find some grant money to help us run the recycling center so that we can keep it open. Just a forewarning there, so. Insurance quote, we did get an insurance quote last year from, an insurance company, here in town. And, we requested that our current insurance company, MMIA, look it over and do a comparison with their policies, which is always a good idea. Lonnie will have that back from them, and they are willing to come to a meeting to discuss those differences as well. So, we're just trying to, get comparisons so that we are spending taxpayers' money, it's always good to check some of these out. And short-term rentals, we are currently on the individual licenses that is separated out on, property managed properties versus individual, properties from people who don't have a property manager license. And apparently the individual licenses are 30 registrations away from meeting their cap.
Threshold.
Yeah, the threshold. So, the property managed sites are fine. So we may be reviewing that, an option for people if we do hit that cap is to go get their property manager's license. You don't have to work for a property manager company.
My recollection is there was a state statute that passed last year that said what you could or couldn't do, and I'm wondering if that was maybe do some homework, because I think they made it not legal to make that distinction anymore.
Really? Okay, well, we haven't met that threshold yet, so that's what we're going to be
But
reviewing,
if we
things like that.
can't do it, we shouldn't.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So it's just kind of, I think was it 170 away or something like that on the.
Yeah, what is our total now?
So Danae sent,
Here, that's a different email. Let me look at it, sorry. Let me pull it up from Danae, and I will tell you exactly,
because there was a total of 371 between
based
Across
on
the board.
all.
all across the board.
Yeah.
Yep, and she has here that the limit is 371 rentals with a total of 197 currently registered. So we are not reaching the limit yet. However, in the finding, we have an established limit between property managed versus individual managed. And 55% of those established limit can be property managed, so 204 short-term rental license certificates are strictly available to professionally managed rentals. 45% shall be made available to all classification types unless exempt from the threshold. So we have 167 short-term rental license certificates available, of which there's 33 licenses still available for individuals. There's 61 active licenses with the remaining amount of 143 still available for property managed sites. It really surprises me that you guys are only managing 61 rentals in the city limits. But
61 total?
yeah,
That's just within city limits, because.
Oh, within
Yeah.
city limits,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I guess. But
so,
And that was from November, though, right?
oh,
I think that's.
yeah, that was from November.
Yeah, we have not gotten that.
Look at those numbers.
Okay, yeah, so we will be discussing this in our, admin committee to see, and we will check into the legality of what we currently have in place before we reach that cap for individuals. So that was the other thing. And then, the other thing that Lonnie had sent us was garbage. Apparently, we are in a deficit all the time on our garbage fees.
At the end of the year, mainly because of the, late payments, because that fund is funded by fees that are assessed on taxes. If those taxes aren't getting paid, then we don't get paid. So, the auditors had suggested, when they came and did year-end closing stuff, that the council needs to look at, those fees and stuff and possibly raising them, just to offset those late payments that people are making, so.
And last, of course, was the budget. We'll be dealing with the budget. Lonnie does send out the updated, basically, our expense and revenue report for each line item in our budget. And it says, you should have all received it. It says in there, this was what we budgeted, this is what we spent so far, so this is what we're estimating is left. And then on the revenue side, this is what we've collected in fees, and this is what, by month, and then what we still expect to collect. Some of that, obviously, is subjective, like the resort tax, we never really know how much we're going to end up with, but the whole budget process itself will be starting soon. I believe the mayor has already.
Scheduled the conversation.
Okay, so, but that's where we're at, so let me know if there's any questions or, yeah. Sometimes at 9:00 in the morning.
Did anybody else have anything they wanted to put on the radar for the admin and finance committee, or ask more about? Let's start.
Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
Seriously,
This is your meeting.
Wow.
Sometimes it's, we're only gonna work on some of these, right? So, all right.
Yeah.
Land use and planning, who did you elect as your chair?
I am the chair.
You have the floor.
chair.
Let's see, talked about, first thing that we talked about was the MOU for the Yellowstone Wildlife Sanctuary. And, we hadn't heard anything, back from the mayor, so we're not sure where that is in the process.
I have not met with her. The freeze came in and we ended up canceling meetings. I have a meeting scheduled with her next week. I might actually be this week on Thursday. She did respond, onto me. My thinking is that we aren't gonna be finalizing that or bringing something here until after the 5th of February. I know they have a deadline that they want to be building in spring, but I'm disinclined to finalize anything without our new Public Works Director sign off on that. If you would like, and I know we had talked about this, setting the spreadsheet, so, I will send I've got 2 separate correspondents, I just got a new one today. I will forward those on. I'm not sure what the process is. I'm hesitant because it's my job to do that, but I absolutely want the input and concern. So as you guys discussed, did you have things that you were concerned for me to take into account into those conversations?
No, we don't, it seems like there's one last sticking point, and we're not quite sure what that is. Something around the bison enclosure.
Yeah.
And that's all
Okay.
we,
Okay,
yeah. But we're not really sure what specifically it is. I mean, we know that what the MOU stated, but it wasn't really clear from,
and I don't know until I have that conversation
Yeah.
either. So I think
Yeah.
that's Thursday, and then now that we have a committee, I can reach out to you, with 3 people, we can have that conversation because we're not violating sunshine laws. So I'll be happy to include you guys in that process as I find out and get your input on that.
Okay.
Ultimately, like I said, whatever I am able to negotiate, you guys have to sign off on. That means I'm smart enough to get what your input is before I go put something together. So,
Great.
okay?
The second thing we talked about was the airport, and specifically the agreement. The airport board met today at 10:30, or 10 this morning,
Commissioners.
the commissioners, but there were airport board members there too. So, it wasn't the full airport board, but it was commissioners and, the mayor of Bridger, Steve Smith, and Jeff Wise. Chris and I and Jody and Chelsea were there, so we didn't speak. Jody spoke, on behalf of us.
To clarify some points.
Yep. Yeah, to
Not
clarify some
negotiate
points.
Contract.
Yep.
To clarify points.
Basically, and Jody was very, upfront in saying, you know, this is out of council's hands now, all the negotiation lies with the mayor. I think their sticking points are, the committee, number and makeup. Scott Blaine, specifically, didn't, appreciate that, Joliet is providing funds for the mill into the pot, and then they don't have representation. So, we, talked about that, and, there's might be some creative solutions to that. We also, that seemed to be the only.
Yeah,
And then Bridger, the mayor there, said that him seeing it kind of for the first time.
Yeah, newly elected.
Yeah, he was newly elected. and-
I've heard that first couple of weeks
Yeah.
can be kind of interesting. And
Yeah, yeah, so he hasn't had a chance to really review it, and neither has his city council.
Yeah.
So they meet once a month, and I got the impression that the January meeting has already occurred, and they haven't had a chance to really review it.
It'll be February, yeah.
So it'll be in February. I think the thing that we'll have to figure out as a council is if there's a possibility that we might have to, again, extend, the dissolution of assets. Not something that I'm too excited about doing, but at the same time, it seems like that is probably where we're going. So just saying that out loud. Anybody else have anything to add about the airport that was there?
I think we have to, as a council, direct the mayor, make a motion, I move to direct our mayor to please, reach out to the county commissioners and the mayor of Bridger to negotiate out any sticking points on the interlocal agreement.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
I just think, you know, and they said, the commissioners said, you know, I realize how much time and effort was put into this, and yes, I mean, this is almost a year. And so it's just ready for this to move forward.
And of course, council, after it's negotiated out, then reviewed by the attorneys, it will come back to city council to vote on.
Yeah.
So it's not our last, you
Yeah,
know.
no, you guys are ultimately you have to approve whatever it is that's there.
And then
And-
whenever we approve it, then it has to go to the commissioners,
And
and
to
then the county,
county.
and to the Bridger
It's a process.
to
So-
approve.
So, yeah, what you guys will actually approve is me signing the agreement, and then we will give it to them and see goes from there, so.
Yeah.
Did you want to share any of the ideas that might help move things forward, like, maybe separate, just throwing this out there, it may not be feasible, but separating Red Lodge from Bridger, so they have their own agreement with the county? Or,
Yeah, that was,
And
then, we also, threw out there
committee
to,
members.
yeah, the committee members, increasing it to 3, 3, and 3, but we could say up to
Three.
3,
Yeah.
so that, I think the sticking point with the prior mayor, Bridger, was he didn't know if he could get 3 volunteers to serve on the board. That's why we went to 2, 2, and 2, but, you know, the county has an issue with that because of the Joliet representation, so of that district, yeah, there would be none.
welcome to being.
So that was a suggestion we threw out as well.
And we
Up to
did,
3.
talk about during the meeting I did say something, but at the 2018
And to be
agreement.
fair, it was a publicly
Yeah,
noticed
yeah,
meeting,
yeah,
and it's
totally.
available, it just wasn't in the city, so it was iffy. Okay, so anyway, so go ahead.
In the 2018 agreement was actually the first time that it was spelled out that the commissioners will be on the airport board. Prior to that, it was
Whoever they appointed.
whoever they appointed.
Yeah.
And that's what I think we all, you know, I think that's what the committee, the airport committee, the city committee was trying to, kind of revert back to, is that it doesn't have to necessarily be the commissioners. It can be, it's just whomever they appoint.
Right,
And it would be the same for us and the same for Bridger,
right,
that you don't, you know, that you kind of mix it up. with
right.
the
And
people.
to be fair, they didn't seem to have a problem with that going away. Commissioner Blaine did say that the fairgrounds, the county fair board has a way larger budget, and none of the commissioners sat on that. So he was perfectly, you know, they seemed okay with it, so
Yeah.
that wasn't a sticking point. It was just a number.
Yeah, but we definitely brought that up, and they were like, oh, right, and they didn't seem to be concerned about that, so maybe it's just more of a, increase it to up to 3, and they can be, it's just whomever they appoint. And, you know, Chris and I talked about, and I think maybe Jody and I a little bit, you know, Bridger and Red Lodge used to be more similar in their airports, and one has grown a lot bigger than the other, and so perhaps splitting apart,
Having two agreements.
makes sense, you know, maybe Bridger doesn't want to be involved in all of our shenanigans. Maybe,
Life would be so much easier for them.
right, so, just an idea.
Going back to,
We need to vote on that.
let's do a roll call, let's go ahead and make it official.
For what?
For
To-
giving us some,
Giving the mayor.
Mayor, go fix this.
Oh,
go fix this.
Go bring
Go
us
do
a
this
contract that
quickly.
we can vote on.
Yeah.
Got you.
Can rip apart.
Okay.
Conley?
Yeah.
Daniel?
Yes.
Eaton?
Yes.
Keith?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Tupin?
Yes.
All right. Going to the question about whether there's a need to extend it, certainly, I mean, one of the things we've given you guys here is the ability to make motions and put things on the calendar and force it. So you certainly have that option of doing it. My 2 cents, as I look at the existing agreement that's out there, the language says that the powers of it was kind of funny, because there was a moment there that I was thinking for a while that my very first action as mayor was going to be to NOTAM the airport is shut down and watch the head spin. But in looking at the paperwork, what it says is powers of the board under this agreement shall continue to the extent necessary to maintain and operate the airport until disposition under paragraph 10, property acquired under the agreement. So my understanding of where we are on the disposition, the initial thing that they were driven is they had to give us their assessment of what the divorce settlement looked like. So to me, we have one of three choices. The council can say, Mayor, write him a check. The council can say, Mayor, we contest the divorce settlement, get this in front of a judge, and let's find out what the actual number is. Or the third is, the one that I think we're all going for, which is let's work it out sooner rather than later. But because this basically says until that process is complete, my understanding is the airport board is still functioning. So if council feels that they want to, extend that beyond the February 15th, we can certainly put that on there. I don't feel it's a sense of urgency to do that. I think things operate as they are, and we just get things worked out as quickly as possible.
Our only, issue was that our city attorney did say that if we don't extend it, the disposition of assets, and say in writing with that resolution that the airport board and the current agreement is in place, that the liability falls squarely on the city. So that was really our primary reason for.
Was a liability
Was
issue?
a liability issue, per our city attorney. So I would like to continue, you know, I know it's extending it until this is fixed.
Okay.
So we have, February 15th is that date, so it would probably have to be we'll have to have that resolution on our next meeting.
With a double dagger on it.
Yep, to extend it from our land use and planning committee.
So land use and planning, but it sounds like you've already got a resolution. It'll be a very quick edit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been edited. Just right from the special meeting, hot off the press.
Say, everyone sounded very optimistic earlier. That was good.
All right, is there anything else I should have asked on that if only I'd been smart enough to ask it?
There's this other thing that we covered that I'll
Okay.
fill in, you know?
Okay.
The use of the urban rural renewal district funds. So the, URD agency, approved a conditional, the planning board approved a conditional use permit for a drive-through north of town, for a copy kiosk. Apparently it's been used for that in the past, long, long ago, I'm told, before I moved here. And they're planning to use it again as a coffee kiosk. So the planning board gave them that conditional use permit for a drive-through. That those owners have also applied for TIF district funds to pave the area around the coffee
For the
kiosk.
just for the drive-through or for the
Just the
whole?
drive-through.
Just the
Just
drive-through.
for pavement, and the conditional use was not dependent on
Correct.
it being paved. So they're gonna actually use this with gravel and whatnot before paving
Next
system,
week,
before.
Yeah, I
paving-
mean, they've already
paving
started a
season gets here.
Facebook page and they're moving forward with opening, so,
Where is it?
north of town, I don't know.
You know where the
Yeah.
buses park, do you know where the buses park?
Yeah,
Or how about next to the Alpine Motel?
It's right by my dad's old shop, just,
By
just
Ronnie's
south of.
Auto?
Okay.
Between Noddings Auto and.
There's like a red building. Yeah, there's
Hope
a sign
Chapel?
that, yeah, there's a sign that says Hope Chapel is now a housekeeping service.
Okay.
yeah, so it's in there.
Yeah, it's like basically right across from there in that same parking lot.
So the question is, the process is stuff goes to that URD committee and they bless it or offer their approval. However, the way the ordinance was written, money is only dispersed through council.
Yes.
And so you guys have to decide, not necessarily even just this one thing, but what sort of things are you gonna say yes to and what sort of things are you gonna say no to? And to just add a little bit extra scarier incentive to do your thinking, that's gonna be one of those quasi judicial decisions, which means you may have to defend in court, this is why I said yes to here and this is why I said no to here. And so you have to have that consistency. So just take that into account.
Right, but we also talked about at this meeting about the URD agency having some sort of scoring mechanism to filter through whether or not it's a good use of URD funds, which is outlined in the URD plan,
In the ordinance, yeah.
in the ordinance, and in the, the, application document that was created. So it's actually, I looked it up and it's a really great document, and it step by step shows how, I'm not sure that it was followed for this specific one. And, you know, we talked about that, this is the very first application that they've received. So, you know, it takes one to like start the process and make sure that you're doing it right and figure
Find
out all
the
the,
dance.
yeah, all the tweaks and, you know, of like, but, yeah, I think it's, it'll, like you said, it will ultimately come to council for approval. And I think, it'll be good to have, some of that, application, criteria
Yeah.
figured out at that level, way down at the other level, at the TIF level, at the URD agency level.
So do they have some type of point system in place?
No,
No.
Okay.
You did say, like, a criteria level, like, there is a primary, so to speak, like, there's a primary list of what definitely has to be met.
yeah,
And then you said there was a secondary that's not necessarily mandated, but highly encouraged, to include
On the application.
on the application.
yeah.
Because one of the things
And it's
is
supposed to-
once that money is spent, it's not available for anything else, so.
Right, and then there was discussion about, should there be some set aside, a reserve set aside, or should we let it get to a certain amount before we start doling out little projects? Because according to, the way we set it up, you know, it's for, you know, 4 main things. And so we want to make sure that if, one of them was workforce housing, that was specific.
Number one.
Right, with
Yeah.
specific things, so it's, we don't, the thought is, that, and the discussion that we had is that we don't want to start spending the money in little amounts, and then when a, you know, developer comes along and there's a perfect project, that we don't have any, we don't have the funds that we need. So, I think there's a lot of room for just making sure that we get everything ducks in a row.
And the agency doesn't know how much money they have yet.
Right.
And we don't know when they're going to know how much money they have.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think any project should be approved until we have that budget in place and a proper criteria and scoring, so.
Yeah,
I mean, that, and again, I do think that looking at the criteria of what this was developed for, because I live in the urban renewal district, went to those presentations, and when it was presented to us, it was, we start here, and then we go to this project, and then we go to this project, once we feel that these have been satisfied. So to me, when I go and out of my way to like, yeah, I want this in my area, I want to see workforce housing, I want to see, because it started workforce housing, commercial development, like prettying up the sidewalks and putting in trees, like that was kind of the system. I think that it'd be really important to stick to that, because otherwise I think that's kind of a slap in the face to the folks that are putting this all together, so.
yeah, encourage private investment in commercial property in the district through the use of public incentives, expand the property tax base in the district through private investment in income-producing properties, stimulate economic and business development within the district, and reduce blighting influences in the district. So, it's not to say that this copy kiosk is not, you know, it would provide, you know, it'd stimulate economic, it's a business,
Yeah,
right?
And it's
So
a
great.
vacant building out there that will be put to
Movable
use.
blight.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's important for us to know how much, like you said, how much is in there, how much money do we actually have to be allocating? And make sure that, you know, we have a process of figuring out who gets it first.
Out of curiosity, with the urban renewal district, do they have any sort of budget that they have to present? So, like, for instance, with TBID, we put together a budget of how we are going to grant out funds, and a certain dollar amount that gets approved by council every year to, okay, we're gonna give this much to events, we're gonna give this much to sponsorships. I mean, that might be something that would work systematically for this kind of.
I don't believe that they're there yet.
No.
That's just a thought, because if we're in the building stage, let's make a nice solid floor.
They did say they meet,
The second Monday of the month at
depending
5:30.
on.
Who's
But
they?
there-
Is this the URD?
URD,
Yeah.
yep, but then they were like, oh, we're probably not gonna meet next month, or
And
the
they're
next,
like, and
or the
it's
following
dependent
month.
on,
Like, month.
yeah, and it's dependent on having staff available.
Right, because that is a big point, they're waiting for a city planner. I mean, this is a huge
Yeah.
thing,
fair.
like,
And there was a city planner involved who did a staff report, much like you got on this, I think, on that. There was a staff report, but the staff report, to be fair, was from a planning point of view, and they made a very big point of saying, we're not gonna cross lanes there. So when my recollection was that the guidance they gave to I was running tech, so I happened to be there. The guidance they gave to the planning board is you are not taking into account whether they do or don't get URD funds when you're approving or not approving or anything.
right.
So there's a clear distinction there. So I don't know that that's a complete dependency, but I can understand what would be helpful to have somebody there.
Yeah, the spokesperson who was there today seemed very uncomfortable with doing a lot without a planner, which I can understand.
They did
That's a big, that's a
When
lot.
the project happened, when it went before URD, Courtney had given them a similar write-up, like to what they give the planning board, only it was focused on URD and that.
And there's planning board representation on URD, correct?
Yeah, Jeff DiBenedetto was on there,
Mm-hmm.
and he was the one that came to the
He was the one that
meeting
came
today.
today. Okay.
Well, I would love to see, some type of point system, some type of, criteria, I guess, on how the money is doled out, because I want it to be black and white when I make that decision. I want to know that it's got so many points, so it's a project that the URD should fund. And I would like to see some type of base amount in there so that when a big project does come up, we can fund it, especially if it's for work, meets our number one goal, which was workforce housing.
I think that budgeting is very important. I mean, we all do that at home, and, well, we can't do that. That project's not happening this year because we're building up the emergency fund.
Yeah. So, I don't know how that, if land use and planning men would direct, take on that, or if you would have URD do it, or how you would.
We should make recommendations to the agency. Somebody attends the meeting, if there is one next month or March. or-
It's kind of the same conversation that kind of with the planning board, which we haven't got to yet, is let's not put these volunteer boards to work on something without giving them the guidance. This is what we're
Yeah.
looking for and what we're likely to approve.
Yeah.
So I guess have the discussion at the committee level, council will approve that recommendation, and then we'll.
But the council's looking for this information prior to their approval, so when you're going through these applications, this is what we're looking for.
May I pause for just a moment? I believe our current 10-6, whatever, says that if we're going to extend beyond 8 o'clock, council has to agree to continue the meeting
Yep.
past 8. I'm looking at the clock. Can I get a motion to extend the meeting?
I make a motion to extend the meeting.
I'll second.
Let's do
We're
it.
almost done.
Any discussion?
I'd like to keep it to a half an hour, extend the meeting for 30 minutes, and that's it.
Agreed.
I don't need very much time, just.
Yeah.
Very short.
I'm sorry, admin
All right.
and finance and land use and planning, we're busy.
Any further discussion? Let's do a quick vote and then get on with it.
Conley?
Yeah.
Daniel?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ronnie?
Yes.
Ruben?
Yes.
All right, as you were.
Sorry.
The city-owned building on city-owned land procedures, we talked about that. Just another thing probably for this, for the committee to work on of, are there any clear, procedures about building on city-owned land? The concern was, a property that, doubled in size and just, I think it gets back to enforcement. We talk a lot about enforcement in a lot of our committees and the fact that we don't have staff to enforce it. We've talked about building code enforcement. We've talked about, kinds of enforcement that we don't have staff to do. But, I think that we could put together some, clear procedures. Alpine Basin, conditional use permit, we had a conversation about it not being followed, in the area of having, enough fire flow for, water. And apparently, I honestly couldn't tell from the meeting, from the people that were there and talk, if there is a challenge or not. That went back and forth, and it would be great to have, true knowledge about whether or not, it is a challenge or is not. But I think the take-home message was that, again, enforcement, if somebody's not following their conditional use permit, then what?
So, I can offer a little bit of input there, kind of coming off the last meeting. The emphasis was conditional use permits are not negotiable. I mean, they were the conditions of the permit. So that was clarified. There was what I've been able to chase down since that time, and I shared with the, planning board president, so he's sharing it with the planning board. So, I imagine Councilmember Conley will be getting that via that, and they're having a discussion on that tomorrow night to anybody else who wants to sit in and attend. But I believe that, there was that actual getting the minutes and what the actual conditional uses were. We did get that documented and find out. And then I had also reached out to Tom Coons as the fire chief, because some of the assertions were, well, basically the conditional use was, if that development created, or broke something, that it was their responsibility to fix it. And the feedback that I got back from Tom was their testing that they've done, because what I was looking for was testing before or after. I, out of curiosity, had a pressure meter, so I continue to test what our water pressure is as they build it, but it's not, it's a flow issue. But he indicated that the problem that has been raised actually predates that development by a very, very long time, and it actually is in the CUP to fix it, and it's part of what we are building with regular impact fees. But his take on it was that they had met the conditional use permit by virtue of the fact that they hadn't created a problem, and therefore they didn't have anything they needed to mitigate. So, that was his response to that. And planning board, that has been shared with planning board, and they will be reviewing that tomorrow. So, I think the other part on that, though, is what you've identified, is we need to make sure from a process basis on even the previous issue, that when stuff comes out of planning board or when stuff comes out of council, that it makes it to all of those agencies. And I think it is gonna be on council for you guys to put in a resolution that says, before somebody builds on city land, it will go to planning board, it will go to council, it will go, so we don't have somebody that says, yeah, we like the idea of pursuing that, and then you turn around and it's done. So I think that's a process that's up to council to put in place. So, yeah.
Then directly to the planning board.
Yeah, and then part of that may be administration. You may say, we direct the mayor to take the output from this committee and make sure it gets disseminated out from that. I will certainly do my best, to do that even in the absence of that. Just kind of like the double dagger thing. I did that before we made it official, but if we like it, let's make it official.
And then, planning board priorities, we did not get to that, because we only had an hour. So that is gonna be the first item on our next agenda.
I did have one more thing to add. Sandy and I did meet with Angela, Getchell from, the Workforce Housing Group. I think you went to the meeting after.
Yeah.
But just to put it on the city's radar, I know she's been in contact with Lonnie, they want to apply for a CDBG grant. And they will be asking, the ask they have for the city is that we be the sponsor for it, and administer it, because they have to have a public entity.
Right, but we don't do, all we do, we're the pass-through.
The pass,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
They-
We're the
they're-
fiscal-
It has to be applied for by a municipality, but they'll do all the work.
Right, exactly. So just to put that on your radar, and it will be used for planning, to try, for the next location. They're trying to figure out where they could build, like a 60-unit apartment. Workforce housing.
Workforce housing.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, can't,
for renting.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Jody. He was at the, Brad was at the,
Yeah.
meeting, and he said that, asked if it would be plenty of time. Their grant, the grant deadline is March 11th. And so, they're gonna get it to us at the next council meeting.
Another agenda item with the dagger.
That's okay, you guys are just saying, we agree that this is an emergency and we'll take it up.
Well, and this is something too that we've done many times
Yeah, right.
as a city to sponsor the
Yep.
Red Library
Better
Committee.
work.
But we've also just talked about it.
Yeah.
All right,
And that's all.
all right. Chairman of the Public Works.
That would be me now. We had a real barn burner of a meeting. We were not able to approve the meeting minutes from November 14th. This committee canceled the last three meetings of 2023, and we did not have a copy of the last minutes. And so Cynthia is going to try and
Track them down.
drag them down. And I don't know if we can approve them
Nope.
if we weren't at the meeting, so they might just go out into the ether, but I'd like to see them, to see. We did elect a committee chair, that would be me, and a taker of minutes, that would also be me. Well, I don't have to do, land use and planning anymore, so.
We have tons of time.
And everybody else has they're taking minutes, on other committees, so I'm fine with that. The updates from the last meeting, what Cynthia could remember was that, all phases were on track for capital improvements, of all the projects that Jim had reported on before he retired. And that we have a new public works director that we've already talked about. We did make a change, for our Parks Board and Sustainability Board representative. Cynthia was doing that, and I was doing that prior to both of them, to Cynthia, and Chelsea's agreed to take those over and, be our Parks Board representative and Sustainability Board representative.
Just a question, is that something we need to do as a council business next time to make it official?
Probably,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose similar to the library board and.
yeah. It was one of those things where, Chris couldn't make the meeting, so Cynthia took it over, so it was never really officially transferred over, so now we'll have Chelsea.
But Chelsea's already going to a meeting on Saturday.
Yeah.
So isn't that wonderful?
Okay.
She's going in the process.
And then we didn't really get to goal setting and objectives. We felt that we probably needed more input from our new public works director, and, there just wasn't anything that was given to us on the agenda, so. Well, I've added the recycling,
I heard trash and recycling, did you
Yeah,
write both of
yeah.
those down?
Yeah.
and then, oh yeah, I didn't put Republic.
And after, I'm actually meeting with Corey Thompson, because she's gonna be gone for a while, she wants to update us on the Sustainability Board. And I think that there'll be, a lot of stuff for Public Works to do there on their projects that they want. On how we can come up with funds to pay for those and what projects we can support as a city.
And that was a bit of a discussion we had too, is just any projects that we may have been addressed by other folks in the public, or again, things that might be coming up, and is kind of like, okay, we have a new public works director, start seeing what some of these other committees are gonna bring us, because we have a feeling that there's gonna be stuff coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
Chelsea, could you, do us all a favor and, be prepared to report on all the sustainability stuff?
You got it.
Corey passes on all the information.
What is the sustainability?
Well, just from.
Oh, from Corey.
From Corey, yeah,
Yep, got it.
not a problem, thank you.
Happily.
That's it.
All right.
We had one person in attendance, Rod Bastian, and he gave us an update on, his parents' property, which was interesting.
He spent the day
Can you
here.
share?
He just, yeah, I mean, can you share, he just reached out to me and wanted to know when we could chat. So I can tell you that I have correspondence on it. I know that there is deadlines approaching, but I do not have any definitive actions to share as of yet, so.
My understanding was we did get the grant, correct?
Essentially,
But there's
waiting
like,
for state approval is what he had said.
They're waiting
okay.
for.
Paperwork to be processed and like, you know.
And he's wondering if all the other stuff that is on the property that was not part of the original damage is gonna be removed and.
Yeah.
current condition pieces, and while they're working on the 19th Street Bridge, it seems that,
That's where they're dumping everything?
yeah, it seems that the property is accumulating a little bit more debris than what was previously there. So he's just kind of wondering.
He's hoping that that is,
Gets removed.
Yeah.
that we'll take some responsibility for that.
I'll look forward to giving you an update in mayor's comments in a few weeks, because this is one of those rare months with a fifth Tuesday.
Oh.
All right.
I think Rod Bastian was at every committee meeting.
Every
meeting
Nice.
today.
Yeah.
He indicated he was
Nice to see him
looking
there.
forward to
Yeah.
coming to him. So before we move on to our final agenda item, let me just do a quick straw poll. That was time consuming, and I understand that was in part because it was the first meeting. But did you feel that format worked to help cross-pollinate between the committees? Did you
I
guys
liked
like
it.
that?
Yeah, I feel,
Yeah.
it's very informative.
It is a lot
All
of
right.
information.
It was a
Um,
lot of
I know.
information.
Sorry.
It was what?
It was
Jody,
a lot of information, and it took longer than we would have liked, but nonetheless,
it was pertinent information.
And I think as we start to move forward with the subcommittees too, we're gonna hone down on a lot of the information,
I
but we're
hope so.
focusing on one item. So the updates are gonna be really thorough on the one thing that we spent that hour on, because we obviously can't get everything we try and work on done in
Right.
that hour, so.
And
I
again,
haven't seen admin and finance work.
one of my goals, I will be absolutely thrilled if I never have to cast a tie-breaking vote. And so for you guys to have the ability to come here and talk amongst yourselves and get there, to me, is the way it's supposed to work, so I appreciate it.
And that would.
I'd be interested to know
The public thing.
what you
Yeah.
guys think of the format.
Yeah.
Five
Five
stars?
stars or stop it?
No, and lady discussion?
Yeah.
We could do, does anybody object if I take a couple minutes of public comment?
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up with some public comment, if anybody has.
Just public comment.
It's not scary, all you gotta do is say
Yeah,
your
you
address.
don't have to
and
stand
name.
there.
She's a pro, she does everything.
Yeah, you just do what I do, I really do. Jen Kathy, North Platte. So I like the format, it's very, very educational for me as an attendee. Yes, a little lengthy, but I see that reducing as it becomes more of a practice, so that's my feedback there. One comment on the grant, when the city acts as a grant pass-through, just because of budget constraints, are we collecting the admin fee that compensates the city staff for the extra work that happens with those grants? Because initially, when the city had T-bid paid the admin fee to compensate for city time to do the work for T-bid. And then the chamber, we became a CVB, we could legally pass T-bid to the CVB to eliminate the expense of that admin fee. But I just want to make sure that across the board, the city is being compensated for pass-through work. Because we're tight on money, and just like the applicant for the de-annexation, whoever is the beneficiary needs to pay a fee, I agree with. And then just a comment from AAA, and I'm happy to visit after, but we manage 33 homes inside and outside of the city limits. The amount of notifications we get from Republic Services daily on delayed pickups and lack of drivers and your trash won't go is alarming. It's alarming to the fact that it impacts our ability to do business. And, I mean, we have an account with Republic's, like, we have someone we can call because we manage so many accounts. And our financial controller, Jade, will get on there and say, you owe us a credit. You haven't picked up this 3-yard dumpster for 3 weeks. The owner needs a credit. So my question to the city is, if our services are not being fulfilled by a contractor, do they then compensate the city for that lack of service? Because that's a budget issue. And it is also, I mean, it impacts us greatly, especially during busy seasons when Republic is not capable of fulfilling their contractual duties. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
And for those that are new, we're not always able to respond, but that's part of it, and we're making notes. Anybody else for public comment?
I'm gonna be a long-time listener before my first time calling.
Nothing wrong with that.
Love it.
All right, going once,
Online.
going, oh, online, anybody who wanted to add a comment? Going twice? Oh, I see a thumbs up. Is that a comment or?
Oh, Angela.
Okay, Angela, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, it's great listening to you all talk and interact, and we really appreciate the, feedback and the support of you in our mission of coming together and making a difference. So I just want you all to know that. So, thank you.
Thank you. And then just to confirm, Daniel, did you want to comment, or was that just all good?
No,
Go for it, you have the floor.
just the comment that you're doing a great job. All sounds great. So thanks.
Thank you.
Daniel. Thank you for allowing.
All right, I have one more from the back.
I have a question, so this is my first city council meeting, so.
Welcome.
This whole section was a new section with the discussions of each
Yes.
committee?
Yeah.
That is really nice, because it's probably unrealistic to go to all of them all the time, so. that's-
And the other issue was that only 3 council members can be there. And so how does everybody come up to speed? So that's what we were trying today to see if that would work. All right. Public comment twice. Public comment 3 times. Public comment is closed. Could you help me out with a motion on number 9?
I'm making a motion to adjourn the meeting.
One second.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your patience and your attention.